There's that satellite picture.
Across the Atlantic,
Tropical
very
Storm
active.
Chris swirls offshore.
Tropical Storm Chris is 200 miles away.
We get some swells across that region.
Rain, heavy wind.
You'd look out there, you'd never know there's a 70-mile-per-hour windstorm out there.
Causing all kinds of havoc across the area, North Carolina.
July 2018. Wrightsville Beach, a small, sleepy town off the coast of North Carolina and a popular surf spot. John Cheshire has been surfing here since he was a kid.
My buddies, they all call me Johnny Chesh. I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've got a family, got a beautiful wife, Michael, and I've got my daughter, James, and my son, Lion. I've been surfing ever since I was a little kid. My dad surfed, my brother surfed. It's part of our family. I've known Andrew for about 20 years. Surfed, did all the crazy things growing up together.
I call him Chesh. He's always just really stoked. He'll call me and say, man, the waves are firing, and then I'll look at the report and it's barely knee-high. So he's got a lot of energy, which is fun. John's one of my best bros. Good guy. Love him to death. We knew that we were going to surf together this day because we were watching this tropical storm, Chris, that was off the coast. Those are our wave makers.
You look at the forecast as a surfer, that's what you want waves. You're checking it probably 3-4 times a day.
Most of the action is going to be in the form of big waves today. That's what you're going to find around the Outer Banks. 3 to 6 footers, maybe building up to about 7 or 8 by late this evening.
You saw this system coming up, and you get like maybe a 2 to 3 hour window where the waves are peaking and are really good. So when it's on, you got to go. And so the plan was just to get with the boys, hop on the boat, cruise over to the island, and then, surf for a couple hours and, come home healthy. That was the ultimate plan.
Their prime surf spot that day is an isolated nature reserve only accessible by boat.
I've got a 23-foot sea hunt boat.
It was me, Andrew, my buddy Sean Rudke, and then my buddy Stanky P.
Chesh is just really stoked. Stanky P was just stank.
And, that's my surfing buddies.
With no roads on the island, they anchor offshore and navigate its windy trails to get to their hard-to-reach surf spot.
The trail winds. I got my board shorts on. I don't wear a rash guard, or I didn't wear a rash guard then. And it's coming right off the main trail. First thing I saw was just this beautiful A-frame peak. And we were all just frothing. Surfing is probably the most selfish sport in the world because it's all about you catching waves. And so once you get over the trailhead, it's like, all right, see you guys. It was beautiful, it was sunny, not a cloud in the sky, there was no wind. The swell was in the water. Water temperature is gorgeous. It's like bath water. You can't script it any better.
The tropical storm swell has water temperatures in the mid-80s Fahrenheit, conditions attracting not only surfers, but other sea life as well.
That particular day, the waves were good.
We get out there, we start catching waves, having a blast. Chesh is a very animated individual. If he's catching waves, he'll let you know he's catching them. But I do recall Chesh, having a hard time getting waves.
At first, I wasn't catching very many good waves. It was kind of frustrating. Like, they were barely missing me. So I was scouting, kind of like going from one peak to the next peak to try to, find the rhythm. So it was like, I was cruising, I was paddling. Typically, you want to be just behind the peak of the wave, and then all of a sudden, I see it. There was this peak coming up, and I was kind of getting into position. It's perfect. And I remember I was paddling and paddling. When you're paddling, water's pushing up. It hitting your chest the whole time. You're also creating this corral. It's like almost like a cove. So I'm paddling, and out of nowhere, pop! I got hit. It was like a bolt of lightning. Instantaneously knocked off my surfboard, could hardly breathe, seen stars, thought I was gonna black out. Screamed out as loud as I could.
After I heard him kind of yell and flail, my first reaction was, yeah, he just got bit. It is a sharky area.
Didn't see it. You got sharks in the water. You've got all different kinds of creatures that can inadvertently hurt you.
Unfortunately for John, the coastal waters off North Carolina are home to many dangerous species of sea animals, including tiger sharks, stingrays, jellyfish, and moray eels.
I said, Chesh, you all right, man? And he didn't respond, but he got back on his board. I didn't see any blood, and he had all his limbs. So I was like, I guess he's okay.
The second it hit me, my world had changed. Immediately, I sat up. And so when I sat up on the board, I went to grab whatever it was. And as I pulled it off, the rest of it wrapped me down my chest here. It was like someone taking like a coat hanger and putting it in a fire and then just like sticking me with it constantly. I've never felt pain like that before. And I thought to myself, I went, geez, that was a gnarly man-o-war.
The Portuguese man-o-war, a jellyfish most commonly found in tropical and subtropical seas around the world. The man-o-war uses long tentacles to capture and kill small fish and crustaceans, injecting them with a powerful venom. Dr. Angel Yanagihara is an associate research professor at the University of Hawaii and has been studying jellyfish for over 20 years.
In that area at that time of the year, there are sea nettles, there are man-of-war, there are other small jellies. Because this was in July, this is really almost the peak season because the waters are warm and they have plenty of plankton and small fish to feed on. So John thinks it's a man-of-war. The one in the Atlantic can grow up to 1.5 feet, these glorious clear bubble sails that have vibrant pink and purple on this frilly top. And they have long tentacles that they can relax and contract. They're basically fishing, so they're lures. And these tentacles expand fantastic depths. People have said 200 feet. But when they contract, you can imagine if your body comes in contact with that much contracted tentacles, and there's hundreds of these, that could inflict an extremely painful wound.
All I could think about was, I need to get to the beach. Like, I'm gonna pass out in the water if I don't get to the beach. And if I pass out, I'm gonna drown.
He just took off. Honestly, I just thought he was taking a break.
I was afraid of having a heart attack and like body shutting down completely. That's how bad the pain was.
The really remarkable thing about these swimming jellies, the whole tentacle, you look under the microscope, you see these wee tiny dots. Each of those is a nematocyst. When they fire, they individually blow out like a ballistic arrowhead, which can pierce through the prey and then inject into the body venom. This is kind of the worst nightmare, especially when you're off from the shore. Your life could be at risk because you're in a foreign marine environment.
As John struggles to stay above water, the effects on his body escalate, his mind somewhere else.
Really, the only thing through my mind was I wanted to get home to my family, make sure that Dad was going to be home for my little ones. I didn't want this to be the way that I went out.
I love running because it is meditative. Focus on your breathing. Focus on the sound of your foot hitting the gravel. Focus on the smells in the air and sounds that you're hearing. It's really peaceful.
Fort Collins, Colorado, a small city at the base of the Rocky Mountains. Its temperate climate and scenic beauty make it a magnet for people who love outdoor recreation. People like Travis Kaufman, who enjoy running its vast, rugged trails.
My name is Travis Kaufman. I'm an analytical chemist. I'm an introvert. I really enjoy the time where I get to be by myself. Running is the ultimate sport for introverts. Annie, my girlfriend at the time, and I, because we're living so close to the Foothills Trail, start running a ton and get convinced to do this 50K race and know that I need to start training big time. And so I really get into some more dedicated long runs with a lot of elevation. So that morning, it was really sunny and really nice, just perfect running weather. I go up thinking that I'm gonna do a 15-mile loop with a really good elevation gain.
Travis begins his run at the bottom of Lowry State Park. His plan is to climb over to the top of Horsetooth Mountain via a trail called Towers.
And so I get to the bottom of Towers, kind of stepping through mud. I don't have any earbuds in. It's really important for me to kind of run without any sort of distraction. There's some rock drops and you need to have all your senses available to effectively negotiate the terrain. I actually get up to the top, maybe a half hour later, and I felt pretty decent after having done the big climb. I look at the view that overlooks all like the western aspect of the Front Range, and you can just see the foothills, and it's just a really nice view. And at that point, I look down and I see a bunch of paw prints. And I just figured these paw prints were dog paw prints because people go up there with their dogs all the time. And I just decided, you know what? I'm gonna take it easy. I'm gonna turn back. So I'm heading south and picking up speed, feeling really good, have a few slips, and about a quarter mile in, I hear a twig snap behind me. And then the rustle of pine needles. And I just totally figured it was gonna be a deer. Anytime you hear something, any rustling, it's always a deer. But it's a very technical trail in front of me, so it's good to not avert your gaze whenever you're running down these rocky sections, or you'll trip and really hurt yourself. But the back of my mind, I have this curiosity, and I decided to turn my head. And what I saw was a mountain lion chasing me.
The mountain lion, one of the most dominant apex predators in North America. An incredibly strong, fast, and agile hunter. Its numbers in the United States have been increasing in recent years. And according to Dr. Matt Aldridge, so are their encounters with humans.
One of the most common questions that I get about mountain lions are how many are out there. And so on average, there's 3 to 4 adult independent mountain lions per 100 square kilometers. So this Horsetooth area, you could have 4 or 5 independent adult lions that utilize it, plus some dependent young. Historically, there's been very little human mountain lion conflict, but we've seen in the past 20 or 30 years that conflict has been increasing, partly due to the amount of humans inhabiting lion habitats, because lion habitat happens to be where a lot of humans want to live, and we're developing these areas. So there's this huge overlap with where we live and where we recreate. The opportunity for conflict is there every day, yet it's still pretty rare.
It's probably 15, 20 yards away. Over the course of a second or two, it closes that distance really quickly. I want to run and get the hell out of here, but I remember certain things that I've heard about mountain lion attacks, and like, whatever you do, don't run. So I throw my hands in the air and I start yelling. I think I kept on just saying no over and over again.
No! 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 No!
Travis's instincts were very good. What you wanted to try to do is intimidate a lion. You want to be face to face with them so you can protect yourself. You want to look big. You want to be calm. You want to back away. But mountain lions are really fast. Their top speed can be, 40 miles an hour or better. So you don't want to try to run from a lion. They're going to catch you.
It's still approaching me. And then I kind of box up and protect my face, and I realized it wasn't going to veer off course, and it was just coming right at me. It's like those moments you have if you ever get into an accident or, a bike wreck. There's that split second where you just know this is going to hurt, and there's really nothing I can do about it. The cat jumps onto me and latches onto my wrist with its mouth. The cat is on me and it's thrashing and pawing at my shoulders and back. And then the cat slashed across my face. I just think that was really close to my eye.
So Travis turns around. Luckily, he was able to hear. So many people run with earbuds in, and then you would never know what's approaching. So he recognizes and knows immediately what to do. And the lion pounces at him, and luckily, Travis puts his arms up to block, which was a smart thing to do, and the lion grabs a hold of his arms. We can assume that this lion was probably going for the throat, which would be typical of how they prey, and they don't prey on humans, so the lion doesn't also know where to target. The instinct is I chase, and then when I can catch it, I pounce, I grab a hold.
At that point, I finally had this awakening moment. I need to do something, and instead of doing the rational thing, I try to just throw this cat off of me. Unfortunately, the left side of the trail is the downward slope of it. I realize as I try to throw this cat off, its jaws are still wrapped around my wrist and hand, and I just kind of get taken with it. The momentum carries us both down this hillside. We tumble 15 feet or so. Luckily, I end up on top of the cat. And the whole time, my wrist is still firmly gripped in its mouth. And I just get on top of it, and I'm looking around for anything I can use to try to get it off me.
Off the coast of North Carolina, surfer John Cheshire was struck by what he believes to be a Portuguese man-of-war and is struggling to get to shore.
It was such a haze. I was so dazed, so confused, agonizing pain. And then also compounded by the fact that I'm 100 yards offshore and I got to get back into shore. I had so much adrenaline in me that with the pain, just my body was in full survival mode.
A man-of-war sting on an adult man basically is going to be sight pain, a little bit of inflammation, and that's about it. But for him, an adult man, to feel this degree of pain, danger of blacking out, pain over 10, all of these things, it doesn't really seem consistent with the man-of-war.
All I was looking to do was just scratch into a wave, just white water, just to push me into the shore. I finally got one. I got in, and at that point I roll off my surfboard and I'm like, thank goodness I'm on land. At that point in time, I knew that something wasn't right mechanically inside with the way my body was functioning. And all I could think about was I gotta exfoliate this. So I started taking sand and I started scrubbing my body down just to try to get the tentacles out.
So it makes perfect sense that his first instinct is to exfoliate or, remove that surface of the skin, something that's causing him pain. But unfortunately, in this instance, it's completely counterproductive because when these tentacles lash across one's skin, the tentacles are lined with thousands of these tiny pneumatocysts capable of injecting the venom. But when the tentacle leaves the body, many of these pneumatocysts are left on their skin. They haven't yet discharged, so they're like so many ticking time bombs. So by putting pressure onto the skin, he's basically pulling the grenade pin off thousands of these microscopic time bombs, and they're all injecting their venom. And now things are much worse.
All I could think about was my body was disintegrating. I can't breathe. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I knew I needed to go to the hospital. But the first person I see, luckily for me, is my friend Guyan. He sees me rolling around. He's like, Guyan, I got hit by a jellyfish. He's like, I don't think this is your typical jellyfish.
I can't breathe. You gotta help me out.
He looked at me and he could see it in my eyes. The first initial thing was, he's like,
Yeah, we're gonna have to pee on you. Pee on me, man? Yeah, man. I mean, that's all we got.
You hear that, it's like, pee apparently neutralizes the sting. I was like, hold on, y'all aren't actually gonna pee on me. You can pee in a bottle and I'll put it on me. It was warm and gross, and at that point in time, I would have really done pretty much anything, but I think it actually made it worse.
Pouring the urine definitely isn't helping. In fact, there's evidence that this can make things worse. His friends are actually wasting time, and that constitutes a type of harm because it's very important that he get proper help as quickly as possible.
With John's pain increasing by the second, Guyan waves in Andrew and the rest of the group.
And so he goes to the shoreline and screaming for Andrew.
I heard, Andrew! I got a wave in and saw Chesh hunched over. I went up to him and I said, Chesh, you all right, man? What's going on? And he said, man, I got lit up and I got stung by something bad. I said, all right, well, what do you want to do? He goes, I got to get out of here. I didn't want to discount what had happened, but we get stung out there a lot. I tried to help him shake it off and just say, bro, you're going to be fine. Let's get back out there. It's really fun.
First, he told me to suck it up. He's like, it's just a jellyfish sting.
It looked like somebody had just whipped him pretty hard with a whip. It was definitely red and raised and blistery. It was pretty bad.
I told them that this isn't the typical jellyfish. I feel like I'm gonna die. I gotta get to the hospital.
John's one of my best bros, and when he told me I'm about to die, it got real. I immediately went from, okay, not a big deal, to, well, let's make sure you don't die.
In the foothills above Fort Collins, Colorado, Travis Kaufman is wrestling with a mountain lion. The animal's powerful jaws have one of Travis's arms and won't let go.
At that moment, I just start scanning. When I see a rock, it's within arm's reach, but I realize that I have one hand inside of its mouth, and then to grab the rock with the other hand, I'd have to let my hand off of the cat's back legs. In that moment, in the back of my mind, I remember that I'd been a cat owner for about 6 months. And so playing with my cat, Obi, I always remember him getting on his back, and then he'll do these little thrash movements and try to scratch out. So Obi taught me that once you get a cat on its back, you're definitely not in any sort of advantageous position. I was just thinking, if I let my left arm free to go get a rock, this thing's gonna thrash out my groin or my guts.
There are some similarities between house cats and mountain lions and how they behave, and probably don't like being placed on their back because it's not a safe position for them. Travis not only has to be aware of the teeth that are clenched to his forearm at this point, but the 4 feet with these razor sharp claws, probably ½ an inch long, and can cut him to shreds really quickly. You know, he's 3 miles from the trailhead. He's definitely got to get this animal away from him and get that under control before he gets hurt more seriously.
So I was able to kind of get some weight onto its back legs with my left leg while I try to grab a rock. Actually, a really big rock, and it's really hard to lift up. So I try to pick it up. I have the cat locked onto my wrist, and then I try to hit it on the back of the head so it'll release my wrist, and I give it a second hit. Instead of releasing, it actually bites down harder. You know, I'm thinking, oh man, okay, this isn't gonna work. For the life of me, I cannot get this thing off of my wrist.
It has the instinct to try to hold on as hard as it can and not let go. When lions prey on deer and elk, they go for the throat and they try to suffocate something. They're holding on to an animal until it can't breathe anymore, which takes time.
I've been wrestling with this cat for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and I'm getting worn out at this point. And I was getting torn up pretty good. Its front claws were still like thrashing like crazy. Even while this is happening, I am yelling for help. I remember thinking whenever I didn't hear a response that I was alone. That was a sinking feeling, but it also was that spark that kind of convinced me that I had to some more drastic measures to get the cat off.
On a desolate island just off Wrightsville Beach in North Carolina, surfer John Cheshire thinks he's been attacked by a Portuguese man-of-war. He's in desperate need of medical help.
At that point, we've got to walk back through the trail.
We helped him back across the island slowly.
Like, I have to stop because I'm like getting ready to like pass out. And I'm like, you gotta call 911. And they can't do that yet because we're not at the phones. We're not at the boat.
We had a little bit more to go, and he said, I'm not gonna make it.
I feel like I'm gonna die.
And I just had to reassure him, John, dude, you're my bro. You're not gonna die. You're gonna be fine.
Finally back to the boat, Andrew immediately radios for help.
I said, Coast Guard, come in. I've got a distressed passenger. He got stung very bad by a jellyfish, and he was having trouble breathing. He said his heart was racing. He felt nauseous. He was in a lot of pain, and we just needed and we just wanted to get him professional medical care, not amateur pee care.
He starts hosing me down with fresh water. And I remember that spiking the pain. It felt like a constant burning sensation, like just laying in hot coals.
Unfortunately, when you're stung, there's a fiery pain. You would instantly think cold water. Again, it's completely counterproductive because these tiny undischarged little stinging capsules, when fresh water hits them, they discharge. And they're perfectly capable of firing into the skin. And so fresh water is not helpful.
It felt like my lungs were gonna collapse and that I was gonna go into cardiac arrest.
So John's life is clearly at risk. The fact that he has respiratory insufficiency, this off-the-scale pain, he feels like he's having cardiac arrest. These are all signs and symptoms of a life-threatening sting. This is not consistent with a Portuguese man-of-war sting. This is starting to sound like a box jellyfish sting.
The box jellyfish, with over 51 species across the world. Its venom is the deadliest in the animal kingdom. Each tentacle, capable of reaching 10 feet long, can contain millions of stinging cells. Unlike most jellyfish that drift with the current, these are able to move through the water at up to 4 knots, faster than a human diver. Dr. Yanagihara explains why the box is the most advanced and dangerous jellyfish in the ocean.
Box jellyfish, they have vision. So each corner of the body has an eye stalk, and on each eye stalk are 6 eyes, 2 of which have a lens such as our own and a retina and capable of color vision. They use their vision to hunt, and they eat fish and small deep sea copepods. They come up to the surface. We as humans go out into the midst of that and we encounter a sting. I think I put that on us, not on a sinister box jellyfish.
I goosed it. Some of the bumps, you know, he's getting hit in the back a little bit, and he yells.
Hitting and hitting and hitting, and every time it hit, that pain just was like getting another gut punch. It's like, at that point, I'm going in and out.
Arriving at the dock, first responders stabilized John.
We had him docked.
All right, step up.
EMS, they're there. They arrived quickly.
Had a medical kit. They had a razor blade. They started scraping down, and that was so painful. Not the razor blade, just the touching of it. And they started scraping me down, but the venom was in me, and they're just doing whatever they can to try to help.
Using razor blades to try to remove the nematocyst. That actually has been published by a medical doctor as advice. But unfortunately, we find no evidence that this is helpful in an actual model. These tiny nematocysts are microscopic. You can't pluck them out with a razor blade. So in fact, by rubbing the razor blade over his skin, all of these venom components are being pressed into his bloodstream. It's increasing the venom load and making things far worse.
Chesh just kind of laid there, just half dead, receiving oxygen to help him breathe.
Oxygen is a move in the right direction. From the sounds of what he's describing, he's starting to get pulmonary edema, so his ability to absorb oxygen from air is being dampened and decreased. So this is very helpful. With the oxygen, we're starting to turn the corner.
Andrew called my wife, explained to her what was going on. I'm sure she was very scared. I was scared out of my mind.
With John in agony, first responders give him an opioid, hoping to ease his pain.
They gave me a shot, I believe, of fentanyl. The EMS guy goes, this will help you out. He goes, this is gonna cut the edge off. And I thought to myself, it's gonna bring it down and I'm gonna be like, hallelujah, you know, pain-free. Didn't do anything. That was when I came to the realization, okay, I'm in some real trouble.
Unfortunately, these opioid class compounds aren't going to help at all. And in fact, they could make matters worse again because it can reduce his respiratory capacity. The venom of the box jellyfish happens to have pore-forming proteins. And these are tiny proteins that self-assemble and form, like buckshot, form holes in whatever cell they touch. And so these tiny pore-forming proteins basically attack and attach to red blood cells, forming little holes. That causes a massive leak of potassium. So John is uniquely at risk at this moment. If enough potassium leaks out of enough red blood cells, his heart will stop.
The stretcher comes out, and seeing your buddy on a stretcher is kind of a harrowing event. You know, he laid there, he was still. They loaded him up. I looked at my buddies, and we were like, damn, that was heavy.
Back in the foothills of Fort Collins, Colorado, Travis's best efforts to get the lion off his arm are failing. He's left with no choice.
So realizing that nobody was coming to help, I had to do whatever I could to help my chances for survival. It was mostly, oh, shucks. I wish it had turned away. I wish it would not do this. And so I decided to get myself leveraged away from the cat, but then get my right foot onto the cat's neck and try to suffocate this cat.
The lion was holding on, not letting go. And so he finally went to the only option he had left, to step on its throat and suffocate it.
Finally, I was able to get a foot onto its windpipe, and then I just leaned into the weight with my wrist still locked into the cat's mouth. And once that happened, the cat started thrashing wildly. It started just going nuts, biting extra hard down on my wrist. The whole time its back legs were digging in to my thighs. It was crazy. And I look at its eyes and I see its eyes are getting bloodshot as I'm suffocating it. While this is happening, since my face has been gashed through, I see my blood falling onto the cat's fur. And so I just kept on leaning more body weight into it. And then finally, after what seemed like forever, but was maybe a minute or two, the cat just went limp and finally released my wrist. I sat there for maybe another 30 seconds to a minute. I felt extreme sadness that I had to suffocate it. And I remember thinking how big its paws were. It looks like its paws are too big for its body. Like its proportions are just a little weird. And I'm like, oh, it's not a full-grown mountain lion. And then I think, where's Mom?
Killing the juvenile mountain lion to save his own life, Travis is now miles from help and bleeding heavily.
Pretty immediately, I know I gotta get the hell out of here. I just feel like I committed the ultimate offense when you're out in nature to get between a mother and her cub.
If the mother comes onto that situation, it's hard to say what would happen. Mountain lion attacks on humans are rare, and this situation is fairly unheard of. So there's a video that came out where we see the runner and you see some kittens in the trail, and then you see the mother mountain lion come back out on the trail and is doing a threatening behavior, trying to get the runner to back away. Clearly that is a protective behavior. She's trying to protect her kittens.
No!
In this situation Travis was in, you could only assume that the mother would try to defend her young, and then that would have really gotten out of hand.
As I'm getting the hell out of there, and as I'm running forward, I just see paw prints everywhere. And I think, oh no. I look up and I see that there's all these rock outcroppings, what seems like perfect mountain lion habitat. You know, you do a Google image search of mountain lions and you see these mountain lions perched on these rocks and like, oh, those are the rocks.
Lions like rocky outcroppings where they can survey the area, which is convenient because then we're not gonna surprise them.
I'm just running through, and as I'm looking down, I also see my face is just dripping blood, and I just am watching it just kind of dot the trail. I don't feel safe, and I'm just thinking that I have this kind of stopwatch just like ticking down before Mom shows up, and I have to get out of this situation as soon as possible.
Travis knows the best place to find help is back on the main trail, a wide open space heavily trafficked by other runners and hikers.
I'm running super fast, and I'm getting winded, and I slip, and I realize I gotta chill out or else I am gonna break an ankle. So kind of stay calm, don't trip, don't slip. I'm bleeding, but I don't know from where. I was really worried about the mother mountain lion showing up. I'm just repeating the mantra, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. And then finally I see towers. And so I start running down towers, and about 2 miles down, I see a runner coming up. I realize at that moment that I'm just totally bloodied up. And so I think to myself, okay, don't seem like a crazy, bloody person and don't freak this guy out. And so I just say,
Hey man, do you have a cell phone?
This guy looks up, he goes, no. And then I could see him do the double take.
What happened to you? I got attacked by a mountain lion.
And then he's like, for real?
Back in North Carolina, surfer John Cheshire arrives at New Hanover Regional Hospital in debilitating pain, thinking he was stung by a Portuguese man-o-war.
I get to the emergency room. I see my wife. She was crying, obviously really worried about me. At that point, I feel like my flesh is ripping apart from the inside out and that it's just gonna melt away. An ER doctor comes in, says, what was got going on? I said, man, I got hit by the Portuguese man-o-war. Worst pain of my entire life. He sees the scarring. The first thing he does, he goes, "That's not a man-o-war," because that's a box jellyfish. And I was like, a box jellyfish? You know, like out of all the surfing I've done throughout the years of my life and all the free diving, I see jellyfish all the time, but I've never seen a box. He goes, that's the Atlantic box jellyfish. He goes, I don't know how they came up here, but you got hit by one.
But if box jellyfish are so rare in this area, what could explain such an encounter? Dr. Yanagihara has a theory.
So yes, it was a perfect day for surfing, but part of what made it a perfect day for surfing was the recent storm event. Box jellyfish in this Cape Fear, Wilmington, North Carolina area are, in general, only found in these kind of swamp areas where they feed in shallow, brackish water. And that storm event conceivably could have caused this natural habitat to be washed out to sea. So these box jellyfish in that locality have been found before and observed before, most often associated with a major storm event.
Still in agonizing pain, understanding why the box jellyfish was there is the last thing on John's mind.
People die from box jellyfishes. I mean, it's the most venomous organism in the world, and I got hit by one.
Unfortunately for John, this venom doesn't just sit on the outside of the skin. It's actually going into the capillaries and into the small veins. So it immediately gets pumped through the body. So every time your heart beats, you have circulating blood, and venom, that can kill you.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna die. I mean, I was scared out of my mind. This may be it. And so they took compressed heat, like scalding hot heat pads, and that helped.
So the reason John is feeling relief is because of the hot compress. Interestingly, for as scary and potent and remarkable as these animals are, it's a marine organism. It's built to live within a very narrow range of temperatures. These proteins that cause the havoc, these pore-forming proteins, are irreversibly inactivated in a safe, hot bath. And when their venom is exposed to that high degree of temperature, 115 degrees Fahrenheit, game over. The venom loses its activity.
And then at that point, it was more bearable, but pain went right back up. And he came back in, he goes, "How you feeling?" I said, "Look, man, whatever you've given me helps momentarily, but then it goes right back up to a 10. It's like, is there anything else you can do?" He's like, "Well, we've already given you the legal amount of medication that we can. If we're gonna give you any more meds at this point in this time frame, you have to sign a waiver that says if you die, we're not liable." And I was absolutely willing to take that risk.
Fort Collins, Colorado. After a violent mountain lion attack, Travis Kaufman finds relief from a fellow runner.
Let's go back to the parking lot, all right?
All right,
Let's go. I'll run with you. Let's go.
And so we start running down this trail. It's one of those elephant in the room moments where somehow we were avoiding talking about the mountain lion at all. I get to his car and I'm thinking, okay, I need to call Annie and let her know. And so I left a message. "Hey, Annie, I just want to let you know I'm okay, but when I was running today, I was attacked by a mountain lion. I'm on my way to Fruita Valley Hospital right now to get checked out."
Travis is driven to the hospital and arrives within minutes.
When we get to the hospital, we go to the front desk. "What happened to you?" I go, I was attacked by a mountain lion. And the ladies at the front desk is like, "Oh, you're serious? Oh my gosh." And I got taken back immediately. I got a claw mark right across the bridge of my nose, then down my cheek. Even caught a claw a little bit in my neck. Had a big hole in my wrist from where one of the main canines was. The back legs were digging in to my thighs and it was trying to climb up my body. I was wheeled out into the main area, and that's when I was able to see Annie for the first time. It meant so much just to let her know that I was okay. I mean, it meant everything.
While Travis recovers, Colorado Parks and Wildlife investigate the scene. They track and discover 2 mountain lion cubs, siblings to the one that attacked Travis. The mother was never found.
A speculation about what happened and why. We don't have all the facts, and we never will. But A lot of research that tells us that it's typical for the mother to leave the offspring for extended periods of time. She could have been killed by another lion. She could have been killed in the act of trying to go out and find prey for her offspring. Travis was running down a trail in an open space property like he likes to do. And we had a young, inexperienced mountain lion in the area, curious, and was trying to learn how to hunt, and saw something moving and started running towards it and pounced on it and attacked. You know, typical predator-prey behaviors there. If you see a lion, you want to make yourself look big so you can put your hands out. You can throw things at them, but don't bend down to pick stuff up because then you look like prey. You know, talk softly, but don't talk in a high, screechy voice because that sounds like prey. Groups are great. If you have kids and you encounter a lion, pick them up.
The juvenile siblings of the cat that attacked Travis were cared for in a rehab facility and released back into the wild after 6 months.
Currently, Annie and I are married. My cat, Obi, is still my feline fight trainer, having survived a mountain lion attack. I just want people to be aware that there are these wild animals that live here and you're in their home, so be respectful and maintain your distance and leave them alone if you can.
At a hospital in Wilmington, North Carolina, surfer John Cheshire seeks relief from a severe box jellyfish sting by taking a high-risk dose of pain medication.
You know, my wife, she was really nervous about me signing a waiver that says that if I got additional medication, that I could, in fact, die. But at that point in time, it's my body. He brings out a waiver. I sign it. He says, all right, comes back in and gives me one more dose. And that's when, I really felt, I was like, okay, I've got some pain relief finally. The next morning I woke up, my whole body had swollen up. It was like a sack of water. Like you could touch my side of my body and it would hold jiggle. It had scarred up and scabbed and it was bleeding.
The first time I saw Chesh, after I saw him getting taken away, first thing he did is flash me to show me his battle wound. It's pretty impressive. He's scarred for life, bro.
It hit me right in here, like a little V right here. When I pulled it off, the tentacles wrapped. And that's when you see the little A-frame right here.
For John Cheshire, it was a case of wrong place at the wrong time. But was the attack complete chance?
Box jellyfish are strong swimmers, at least twice the swim speed of a diver. They use their vision to hunt, and they're attracted to light. So it isn't out of the question that a surfer going by with a glistening surfboard, the jellyfish could have swum towards him. So the simplest version of what you should do if you're stung by a jellyfish is 2 steps. First, flood the sting site with vinegar to inactivate these little capsules. It's a weak acid. It actually lets the architecture be changed so that they can no longer fire. Second, apply heat or hot packs, optimally immersing in water for 45 minutes, 42 to 45 degrees centigrade. And now your body can repair itself and you can recover.
Man, that box, it was just doing its thing. It happened to find me and I found it. And I've got no animosity, no hate towards them. I wish it never happened.
Folks have wanted to say that jelly numbers are increasing around the world. I don't know that there is data to speak to that, but certainly humans are increasing around the world. And our coastal populations are increasing around the world. So more and more often, such events could occur.
Once I kind of healed up, it was back on the island for sure. Water was still warm. Definitely had a rash guard on. We're surfers. You know, when the waves are good, you go surf. I've still got scarring 3 years later. It's an uncomfortable reminder that there's things out there that can kill you that don't mean to. Just like that, you can go.